Konnichiwa minasan, Gitsapalooza ni yokoso.
Hello everyone and welcome to Gitsapalooza. Today's video is aimed at people who are going to be coming to Adepticon and participating in the Bushido tournament. Obviously anybody is welcome to watch it. If you're curious on what TOs worry about, maybe this would be an interesting video for you. I will try to keep it short. I'm going to do several of these to try to deal with as many questions as I can before we get to the tournament day, in hopes that I may actually be able to still talk by the time the tournament is over. But we'll just launch into this and we'll see how it goes. So what I'm going to talk about today are tournament norms. Don't let the terminology fool you. Norms are just corporate speak for the kind of the ground rules that we agree to before we do any kind of group activity. And in this case, it's the tournament. And so I'm going to be talking about certain things that you need to have in your Bushido warband for the tournament. And I've made myself a list, not only to help me remember what I want to talk about, but so you guys can see it up on the screen in case I go over something a little too quickly. And these are all aimed at the competition being fair and open, and getting done on time. And this is all, in essence, for fairness. You know, I don't want, if you guys outthink each other and outplay each other on the tabletop, then that's what the Grandmasters tournament is all about. However, I don't want anybody getting an unfair advantage because what they're doing is not transparent. And that's what a lot of these are going to be talking about. So enough of the preamble, let's get into it. So number one, labels. Labels are things you put on a non-unique model. And what I mean by a unique model is a model that where there is only one on the card. Any named character is going to be unique. Those are easily identifiable by the physical figure. You look at the figure, you can figure out what it is. Even if you've never seen it before, you get told once or twice and it's in your head. What I'm talking about is when you have multiple copies of the same model that are, in essence, impossible to tell apart on the table. They may be exactly the same model. They may not be exactly the same model. But in essence, there's no easy way to tell them apart. So, for example, here are some examples of models that, while they are all snakes and relatively diminutive ones in the Ito list, they are all easily identifiable. So you've got a cobra, you've got the asp, you've got the constrictor. So these, in essence, even if they are all listed on the same card, they are easily identified and thus are, for our purposes, unique. So I wouldn't have to put additional labels on those because it would be obvious to everybody on the table where what those models are. So let's go to another example. Here for my Bakemono spearmen. So I've got two spearmen, two spearmen to a card, and there is no practical way of telling them apart. Now I did paint the shirts separately, but that's too much for your opponent to expect, to remember which shirt is yellow and which shirt is red or whatever. So what I'm going to ask you to do, and I'm going to insist you do, is put some label. You can put it in the back if you want. I mean, it doesn't have to be right in the front. I label mine in the back with however they're indicated on the card, or a number 1 or number 2 or 1 dot or 2 dots or A's and B's and C's. But somehow label those models so that anybody who looks at them can instantly tell which version of which damage track is represented by that model. So for example, my dogs, which you guys have seen over ad infinitum, you can see that's my A dog, B, and if you want to mark them in Japanese characters, that's fine as long as those are somehow represented on the card. But I would prefer something really straightforward, so that if your opponent or you look at a model on the table after things get mixed up and look at a card, it's easy to draw a line for which model represents which damage track on the card. So if I was going to play these Bakemono spearmen at Adepticon, I would need to put, I think in Bushido they're usually labeled A, B alphabetically, so I would put an A on the back of one and a B on the back of the other. Also because I like the back because your models typically are facing away from you. Not always, but most of the time. And that way with a glance, I can tell which model is which, especially if they start appearing and wandering all over the board, or if I'm summoning in Bakemono or something like that. So that is the label. So you must have like figures labeled if they appear on the same card, so that both you and your opponent can instantly tell what model represents what damage track. All right, second thing are arcs. And again, there's nothing mysterious about any of this stuff. The front arc is critically important in Bushido. You can see on most of my models, I mark them in a color. So I put 2 white lines that should be just opposite one another. And that is actually the 180 arc, and I just add the color to make them look pretty. However, there is no reason you have to do that. And you can see the Cobra here has got the 2 lines, so I know what the front arc is, but doesn't have the color added, and that's just fine. They don't need to be fancy. But again, you and your opponent must be able to look at the figure on the tabletop and know exactly where its front arc is. And again, that is for cleanliness of play. We don't want arguments about, well, was he in your front arc or was he not? In this case, there is no question. You just follow the line, and you can draw a line through here and tell whether that spearman is in the asp's back arc or not. So that, again, is something you must do with your models in your warband. The front arc must be clearly indicated on each model. Okay, markers and counters. It is an expectation that you have all the markers and counters that you need for whatever effects you're going to be using. What form these markers and counters take, as long as they are clearly readable and understandable, I don't care. I'm not pimping anybody's particular version of counters and markers, but they have to be understandable not only by you, but by your opponent as well, especially activation counters. So if you've got a model, and I don't care whether you want to use the old activation counters where you flip them and go down, or these are some fancy new ones that I got. Again, same idea. It starts with 2 activations. After I move him, I flip it to 1. When he's done, I pull at 1 and I have none. I actually prefer this to adding counters to them. So I think taking counters away is much preferable to adding them. But in essence, for the tournament, that's my preference, but it's not anything I'm going to enforce. But what I absolutely will enforce is you must have counters on every figure. Or if you have, like my dogs with group activation, as long as it's okay with your opponent, you can put your markers for the entire group on one single model. At least until they start to get broken up, and then you have models with different activations. You can even I did this for a long time before I got these new markers, is I would just take, these are the old key markers, and I would just put 2 of them, and then as I activated, I would remove them. So again, this is something that is absolutely necessary. You must have markers for your models, activation markers, and also special effects markers if you're going to be doing other things. So there we go. So we got that counter. That's pretty simple, markers and counters. All right, time. I don't really need much in the way of, I'm just going to put some things on here to make it look pretty. There we are. Time, we are going to be using a 2-minute thinking counter, which is an idea from GCT. So I don't want you guys to think I'm making this stuff up. These are all basic tenets of the game. So the 2-minute counter is designed to combat people slow playing. And it doesn't mean you can't take your time doing your turn, but it means that when it's your turn to make an activation, you have 2 minutes to decide what you're going to do. And then you have 2 minutes to declare an action with a model. So then the question is, what's the penalty if you don't? And I will double check this, but I'm pretty sure that the penalty is laid out in the rules, which is that your opponent then gets to pick what model activates next on your side. So you don't want to do this. So it's very simple. Play as fast as you can. That's what it boils down to. Nobody's asked you to rush into things so much that you're doing stupid things, but slow playing sucks. I have a very low opinion of people who do it. It's a problem in all kinds of gaming systems. And I don't expect anybody to slow play in Bushido. The people that I know are really good at it don't slow play, and the people who play slow don't slow play. They just don't know the game well enough yet. So that gets into another subject. But we're going to do these 2-minute thinking counters. So just take your phones, get out the little timer, put it on 2 minutes, and when it goes over to you, hit that button and let it roll down. And then if it gets to 2 minutes, nobody's going to be over your head with an axe right at 2 minutes, but that means you need to make a decision then. So whatever thinking you've done is going to have to suffice. You need to make that decision right there. Okay, so much for timers, thinking timers. Again, that won't apply. You can take as much time as you need to actually do the action. However, please be succinct. Again, we're trying to get in a 100 rice game in just 2 hours with a little bit of breathing time in between. So, you know, do your best. Patience. Okay, so this particular number 5 is aimed at you folks out there who know how to play this game and are serious contenders for the Grandmasters. You have to understand that, you know, typically in Europe, I've been keeping my eye out, and a lot of the Masters and Grandmasters events in Europe are limited to 24 people. We've got 40. The reason we have 40 is that we're trying to build the game over here, and I felt it was important to make the game as open to as many people as possible. So if you're playing somebody who is clearly new and they're not slow playing, but they're slow because they're having to look up their rules and they're uncertain about things, be patient with them. They are not trying to sabotage you. I know that getting your turns in is important, but being an ass about it isn't going to help anybody, and it's not going to get you out of there any sooner. So if you know you're playing somebody who isn't up to your speed and is kind of struggling, just help them enjoy the game. I'm not asking you to do anything that is going to compromise your position as far as winning the game goes, but if there are simple rules that you can help them along and help them remember and get them moving, don't push them, but volunteer to be helpful, and your game will go faster and everybody will be happier. Number 6 is speed. This part of the message aimed for you guys who are casual gamers, who are just kind of playing this for the excitement of playing some really top quality talent and for a chance to play in a big organized tournament. Remember that your opponent might really be in the running to win this tournament. And the more you fiddle around and look at your rules and don't know what you're doing and don't come prepared, the more you throw a monkey wrench into their fun. Don't do that. Understand coming in where you are in the scope of this tournament and act accordingly. Try to practice with your army as much as you possibly can before you get to the tournament. If you have questions, get online. Don't ask me. I run the tournament, but God help you if I'm answering your rules questions. Get online, get on the Bushido, one of the Bushido web pages, get on the GCT forum, one of the Facebook pages. Ask questions now. Ask your buddies who've been playing longer. Figure out what you're doing. Learn your army so that you can go in and play fast and play clean. If some parts of some of your models are just too confusing, then just play the top part of the card and don't worry about all the shenanigans. Enjoy yourself, have fun, get experience with your army, but don't sabotage somebody else's day because you don't really have that much of a mastery of the game. I want you to have fun. I want you to be involved. That's why there's 40 people in this tournament, not 24. But also be conscientious of the person you're playing against and what their goals might be and how you might be interfering with those if you really aren't prepared. So I want you to play. Don't quit. Don't not come. Just be aware of what's going on around you and about the time that's passing. All right, the last thing I'm going to cover in this video is tournament rounds. The only reason I bring this up, this isn't a lecture like the rest of this is. This is actually something I've done with as many people as we have, we should have 6 rounds. No way we are going to get 6 rounds in a single day. 4 rounds is pushing it as it is. It's going to be a long day. But in a big event like Adepticon with all these other events going on, there's no way I'm going to get you guys for 2 days. You all have too many other things to do. So we're going to do everything we can in 4 rounds. We're going to try to play fast. We're going to try to play clean. And we're going to try to get everybody out of there happy and having had a good experience. So just so you know, that's the first. I warned you there were some deviations between this tournament that I'm running and the official tournament rules, especially for Grandmasters tournaments. GCT knows about everything. They've approved of everything. I just think we're in a little unusual position because I'm trying to involve as many people as possible, as opposed to having this be the elite tournament in the U.S. It's probably the only big tournament in the U.S. So anyway, there you go. So call me all the names you want. Throw all the hate on me you want. I don't care. I'm a big boy. I can handle it. But I'm not doing this to lord over anybody. I'm doing this to let you guys have as good a time as possible, so you don't get into stupid little arguments about, I was in your back or you weren't in my back or all that kind of stuff. Clearly mark everything. Look at things from the view of your opponent. Are they going to understand what you're doing and why? And if you can answer this question, and am I playing to the best of my ability? I think if you can do all that, your opponents are going to have a great time and respect you. I will have a much better time and respect you, and you will have a great time, which is the whole point. Anyway, thanks, guys. Post questions below. Again, as much as possible, we're going to follow the official tournament rules with a few deviations. There's going to be a bunch of real GC2 people there, so if something comes up that is of a serious rules nature, I will probably be deferring to them. Hopefully, simple stuff I can answer. And I'm really looking forward to it. I'm excited. I'm not as panicky as I was last year. I'm thinking this series of videos is going to help. So the next series, I will be covering 1 video each of the 4 scenarios. So you know what to expect. You know how they're going to be scored. And then I'll probably do a video on just the scenario sheets, or I may tie that in on the scoring and all that. So anyway, that's it. Thank you guys for being patient. I hope I didn't offend you. I'm not trying to be offensive, but I have to, try to establish some solid ground rules so we don't get into arguments once the tournament gets started. So we'll take care of that now, and then we won't have to worry about it. You guys have a great day. It's good to talk to you again. Thanks for stopping by, and thank you for joining me on Gitsapalooza.